Yo, what's up, Everett? Um, you said at one point that the human brain is the source of morality, and that therefore morality is obviously subjective. And I think locating, morality only in the brain isn't exactly wrong, but I think it's a little bit reductionistic because, yeah, evolution has altered our brain so that we can live more productively and cooperatively with others in a community. But to say that it's all because of the brain is to neglect the fact that there's an intersubjective component of morality. And in fact, I think that's really what morality amounts to. It's not just subjective, something that I have in my own mind. It's something that groups of people come to agree on as a community. And it's a common agreement. It's an intersubjective relationship between a group of people. So it's not exactly subjective, and certainly it's not objective. It's sort of in between somewhere. And I think that's where morality comes from. Other than that, I wanted to talk about what we mean when we talk about someone being reasonable. What is reasonableness and what is unreasonableness? Obviously, you're right. Most people would find being unreasonable a bad or even immoral thing, because if you're unreasonable, you can't communicate with people, you can't engage others in a common understanding of what the best course of action is in any given situation. But what is reasonableness? Is it listening to this objective capital R rationality that exists independently of emotions and the intersubjective community and human beings and stuff? Is it really something transcendental like that we have to obey? Or is reason and rationality something more pragmatic that we can't really prescribe exactly the set of rules that makes something rational, but we kind of recognize it in the act of it occurring, and we can distinguish between someone who's being unreasonable, someone who's incapable of giving good reasons for their behavior, and someone who is. But we do this based more on an intuitional sense rather than because we know what this capital R transcendental rationality is. That was, I guess, the dream of the Enlightenment, that we could mold society into a utopia because there was this transcendental source of capital R rationality that everybody should be made to conform to. But I think as the Enlightenment played out and as time went on, we found that we live in a little bit more of a mushy world than that, and people aren't logical serial processors like you said, and so it just didn't really it turned out not to be possible for people to obey this transcendental source of rationality. Not only that could they not obey it, but it really didn't exist. Rationality is always embedded in a human context, not necessarily just a subjective context, but an intersubjective context. We all have a shared understanding of what it means to be reasonable. And one more thing about truth, and how non-religious and religious people seem to have a different understanding of what that word means and what it requires of us. The atheistic, rational-minded person will say that you can only know the truth if you are, in a sense, disinterested, and you withdraw all your moral intuitions and emotional positions from whatever it is you're trying to judge, and then just evaluate it in a purely disinterested and objective, rational way. And the religious person says, well, you can't know the truth if you're going to withdraw yourself from it. You can only know the truth by, passionately, subjectively, seizing it as this inward movement of, intense emotional commitment. And so, therefore, truth is something that requires your interest. It requires your subjective belief that it is the truth. So, there's these two different views of what the truth requires of us. The rationalist atheist person says, I can hold the truth at a distance and say, this is a fact that's out here and it's objective, but the religious person, on the other hand, will say, no, if it's the truth, you have to appropriate it and make it part of yourself, and really passionately, emotionally, sees it as your own. Otherwise, it's just this worthless, factoid. So it's a difference between truth being something disinterested or something that requires interest. And I'm not saying that one is right or the other is wrong. I'm just pointing out that that's sort of the field or the context within which rationalists and religious people sort of conceive of the truth, I would think. So yeah, good video. Leave it at that. Let me know what you think.